Has there been a big shift with employees? Say you have an employee that does X, Y, and Z activities consistently at work, getting it accomplished. They may seem overwhelmed at times, but they manage to get it done, whether it's overtime or what. Now that they're working virtually and they have, like, say, small children or somebody they're taking care of in their home, they're now not able to do their job, which may or may not should have been split with another person. Would there be the option to realign what jobs people are doing in this environment, not specifically because that person can no longer do their job and part of someone else's, but because the way the new environment is, it's not possible. It's not working any longer.
And I guess I'll jump in here first and I'll let others weigh in. I think the answer is yes. I mean, obviously flexibility is the key, but from a legal point of view, what you need to understand is that once you start providing that flexibility, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't seek it out, you need to be sure that you're being fair and equitable to others who may have the same or similar situation. It doesn't have to be exact, but once you start to offer that flexibility, which I think is a sign of a progressive employer, right? But you also have to be aware of the next 3 employees who might come and request the same thing, and what kind of logistics is that going to cause you. But restructuring work, restructuring hours, I mean, all those things are definitely on the table, but sometimes the devil is in the details, because you're dealing with one employee. And you need to be sure that when you're dealing with that one employee and trying to resolve their issue, remember, there may be 15 employees behind them who also may be in similar circumstances. So whatever you do for the one, you need to keep in mind the universe of your employees, not just for that one employee, in terms of being more flexible with work environment restructures.
I was thinking I understand what you're saying. Okay. I was thinking more along the lines of, if when everybody was in the office, say they had a team of 10 and now it's a team of 9, but they never hired a new person. So they kind of divvied up the responsibilities, but everybody was kind of managing. And now, because of working remotely, what was kind of working before is absolutely not working now, but there was no intention to hire. It just exacerbated the situation. So would stating, now that we're working remotely, we're going to realign what people are doing and their expectations. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, sure. Keeping in mind that you want to be sure that when you realign and when you redelegate work, that it still falls within that particular job classification, right? So you want to be sure that you don't delegate duties that are now outside of that person's normal job. But as long as you realign those job functions and it's still under the umbrella of that position and job classification, oh, absolutely. And I think that goes on in work environments all the time, regardless of whether or not you're on Zoom or whether or not you're in the office, due to vacancies, inability to hire, all those things, layoffs, whatever it might be.
And it also depends on if they're exempt or non-exempt. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they're doing non-exempt work where they're paid essentially an hourly wage, it's not always the case, but there's some exceptions to that. But if they're non-exempt, then their wage, you have to pay them overtime. And there's a lot more restrictions, because if you start giving them work that is considered exempt work, then that could change their classification. If they are exempt from the overtime provision of the Wage and Hour Act, Fair Labor Standards Act, then you do have a lot more freedom to realign duties and as you see fit. The key is how you do that. Are you going to just dump on the employee? You're going to meet with the employees and talk about who wants to do what as you realign and get buy-in in that regards. Now, obviously, in a governmental structure or others like that, there's much more different rules. But in the private sector, since a lot of the employment is employment at will, especially for exempt level employees, you have the right to realign work, but you have to do it the right way, so you get employee buy-in and you don't frustrate your employees. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of, at our own university here, but I know of friends at companies in town, and I use this term colloquially, but it's piling on. Companies are afraid to hire right now. So they, even though their business might be somewhat stable, they're not replacing people because they don't know what's going to happen next. They don't, and especially in the political side of things as well. They just want to hedge their bets and be as conservative as possible. So there is some of that loading up of more responsibilities. As a manager, you've got to manage that. And that's why we go back to the communication and touching base with your employees, having some one-on-ones that are rare in a remote environment, and scheduling those on a regular basis, whatever the need is, to see how they're doing, how you can help them, what they're struggling with. And so see where the warning signs are and what you can do before it gets to more of a breaking point.